The house on Blackthorn Hill was a rotting skeleton of the past, its bones creaking in defiance of time. Perched like a vulture over the dying town of Ashridge, it stood untouched for decades, waiting. The locals called it the Hollow Home, a place where voices echoed from the walls long after the mouths that spoke them had been buried. Some said it breathed at night. Others swore its windows blinked. When Evelyn Granger inherited the house from her estranged grandmother, there was no joy. Only dread. A deep, bone-gnawing sense of being called back to something ancient. Something that pulsed not through legal documents, but blood. She arrived on a rainy Thursday, her 10-year-old son, Tobias, asleep in the back seat. As she stepped out of the car, the wind pushed against her, urging her to turn back. She didn't. Something had been drawing her here since the day the letter came, sealed in red wax and smelling faintly of iron and rot. The front door opened before she even touched the knob. Tobias stirred. "Mom. Why is it already open?" Evelyn blinked. The wind, maybe. A caretaker. But no one had been here for decades. She walked inside, heart clenching. It smelled like earth. Wet, grave soil. The interior hadn't aged so much as it had decayed. Wallpaper sloughed off in long strips like peeling skin. The chandelier hung at an angle, its crystals dulled and dusted with cobwebs. Family portraits adorned the hall, dozens of them, each depicting stiff-faced women with hollow eyes. All of them wore the same locket. A silver pendant shaped like a crescent claw. Evelyn remembered it. Her grandmother had worn one, too. Always. A letter lay on the hall table, addressed in that same spidery ink. To my blood. Your destiny is not chosen. It is summoned. Do not deny what whispers in your marrow. Open the basement when the moon bleeds. Tobias tugged her sleeve. Why is there red on the floor? Evelyn turned. A line of crimson trailed from the kitchen door across the wooden floor and disappeared into the basement door. It wasn't wet. It had dried into the grain like it had always belonged there. It's paint, she lied. But it wasn't. That night, Evelyn tucked Tobias into the upstairs bedroom and sat alone in the master room, which smelled faintly of something sweet and decayed. She found a box beneath the bed, photos, letters, dried herbs, a small dagger shaped like a thorn. At the bottom was a faded photograph. Evelyn as a baby, cradled in her mother's arms. Behind them stood her grandmother, Agatha Granger, wearing the same locket, but this time, she was smiling. The smile didn't reach her eyes. There was something in her pupils. Something wrong. A glimmer, almost like teeth. At exactly 3:03 a.m., Evelyn awoke with a start. The house groaned. The wind was still, but something else moved, beneath. A rhythmic tapping. From the basement. She sat up. It wasn't the creak of pipes or an old furnace. It was deliberate. Like fingers drumming on hollow wood. Tap. Tap tap. Tap. She slowly walked to the landing. The hallway was dark, but she swore the portraits were different. The eyes, she knew they were looking at her now. The basement door was slightly ajar. A soft red glow seeped from the crack. She didn't remember leaving it open. Downstairs, the air was thick. Heavy. It clung to her skin, moist and metallic, like blood. The staircase groaned beneath her with every step. At the bottom, candles burned in a perfect circle. Their flames didn't flicker. They stared. A cradle sat in the center. Old. Ancient. Empty. But it rocked. Slowly. Rhythmically. A whisper floated through the air. Blood remembers. Evelyn stumbled back, heart racing. She turned to run, and screamed. Agatha stood behind her. Gray. Emaciated. Eyes like black mirrors. Her mouth stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of sharp, tiny teeth that went too far back. "You came back, child," she croaked, voice layered with 1,000 echoes. The line must continue. Evelyn ran upstairs, slamming the basement door. She locked it and pressed her back to the wood, panting. When she looked down, her hands were shaking. Red. Covered in blood. But not her own. Tobias. She bolted up the stairs, her mind fracturing with each step. Tobias. No answer. His room was empty. The sheets soaked in something thick and dark. The windows closed. No sign of a break-in. Only a locket on the pillow. The same one from the portraits. Still warm. As if someone had just worn it. Then came the sound. From inside the closet. Breathing. Wet. Heavy. Slowly, Evelyn approached, each heartbeat louder than the last. She opened the door. And found Tobias. Curled up. Unmoving. His eyes wide. His mouth open. But silent. She reached out, and he blinked. Once. "Mommy," he whispered. "She's inside." Evelyn recoiled. "Who's inside, baby?" Tobias's eyes rolled back into his head. Then his voice changed. Lower. Older. Male. Agatha was only the beginning. The next morning, Tobias was different. He smiled too much. Blinked too little. At breakfast, he hummed an old nursery rhyme Evelyn didn't recognize. A tune that itched at the back of her skull like a memory from another life. Crescent moon and cradle swing. Blood will wake the sleeper king. She dropped her coffee. The mug shattered. Tobias didn't flinch. His spoon stirred the cereal perfectly. 1, 2, 3, pause. Repeat. When she tried to speak to him, he only stared. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Instead, she heard a whisper behind her. From the hallway. She turned. Nothing. But the portraits had changed again. The eyes now bled. That night, Evelyn found an old journal in the attic. Bound in skin. Stitched with human hair. It belonged to her mother. Inside were pages of madness, ink scratched with fingernails and drawings of rituals. Symbols burned into wood. One phrase repeated, again and again. Growing more violent with each entry. The blood is the lock. The womb is the gate. And beneath it, in a child's handwriting. Never look at them with both eyes open. The final page was blank, save for a fresh fingerprint in red. Her own. She hadn't touched it yet. At 3:03 a.m., she awoke again. This time, the house was completely silent. Even the wind had stopped. Her clock blinked black. The moon outside glowed red, bloated and weeping. The basement door stood open. Candles lit the stairs, one by one. Tobias stood at the top, eyes black and smiling. He held the silver locket in one hand. In the other, the dagger from under the bed. "We go together, Mommy," he said in a voice layered with others. "You promised." In the womb. In the blood. Behind him, the shadows moved. Crawling. Reaching. Laughing. Evelyn screamed. But it was already inside her. The birthright. The blood. The hereditary. The sky over Ashridge turned the color of dried blood by morning. Evelyn hadn't slept. Her body trembled beneath layers of sweat, and her thoughts came in broken fragments, none of them making sense. She could still hear Tobias's voice, too deep, too old for his throat. And the way he stared at her, like she was a stranger, like she was nothing but a shell. She stood in the bathroom, staring into the mirror, but something wasn't right. The reflection lagged. Just slightly. When she tilted her head, her reflection smiled. She didn't. Her hands gripped the sink, knuckles white, breath shallow. In the reflection, behind her, the door to the hallway creaked open on its own. She turned. Nothing. When she looked back, the reflection was normal. But she felt it now, something had shifted. Something inside her. Tobias didn't speak for the rest of the day. He sat on the living room floor, humming that same damn lullaby again, drawing in circles. Over and over. Evelyn glanced at the drawings. They weren't childish doodles. They were precise. Symbols. Spirals. A tree with faces hanging from its branches like fruit. And in the corner of one, a black figure with arms too long and a mouth too wide, watching from the dark. Tobias, she said cautiously, where did you see this? He didn't look up. They talk through the walls. The roots. They show me things when you sleep. She froze. Who's they? His head slowly turned toward her, eyes hollow. The ones buried. The ones that still live beneath. A knock came at the door before she could reply. An old man stood on the porch. His face was deeply lined, like his skin was trying to escape the bones beneath. He wore a long black coat despite the heat, and around his neck hung the same locket. Silver. Crescent-shaped. You're Evelyn Granger, he said without emotion. Daughter of Miriam. Blood of Agatha. The next gate. Evelyn backed away. Who the hell are you? He stepped forward, as if invited. I am Enoch. I served your grandmother. I serve the bloodline. You have been summoned, Evelyn. The ritual must complete. Evelyn slammed the door in his face. But he didn't knock again. Didn't protest. When she peeked through the window, he was gone. Only a fresh symbol carved into the wooden door remained. It was bleeding. That night, Evelyn found Tobias sleepwalking. He stood at the top of the stairs, muttering in a dead tongue. When she touched his shoulder, he turned, his eyes rolled back, and his mouth gaped open unnaturally wide. A voice, not his, spoke from his throat. She resists. But the blood remembers. And the roots hunger. Then Tobias collapsed. When he woke in the morning, he remembered nothing. But the carvings on the walls were new. More symbols. More warnings. She tried to call someone. Anyone. The phone line was dead. Her cell had no signal. The town below was silent, distant. Like it had vanished from time. She was trapped. Not just in the house. In the lineage. She began reading more of her mother's journal. The words twisted on the page as though alive. Agatha wasn't the first. There were others. Each one called back by blood. Each one chosen before birth. They don't die. They become soil. They become root. We don't inherit property. We inherit the curse. The right to host the sleeper. The next page was smeared in dried blood. A drawing of a woman, pregnant, bound in thorny vines, her mouth sewn shut. Eyes wide with horror. Evelyn could feel it in her womb now. A stirring. At exactly 3:03 a.m., it happened again. The red moon returned. The whispers began. From the walls. The floorboards. The air. Not audible words, but feelings. Images. Unspoken commands. Open the cradle. Evelyn followed the voice, half asleep, half possessed. The basement door stood open. Inside, the cradle rocked again. But this time, it wasn't empty. Inside was a bundle of cloth, wet, squirming. She approached, heart pounding, and unwrapped it. A ribcage. Human. Small. Bound in vines. Eyes opened within the center of the bones, blinking, watching. The voice filled her mind again. Blood gives rise. Bone binds fate. Flesh pays the price. She screamed and dropped it. The cradle didn't stop rocking. Instead, it grew louder. Tobias stood behind her. You saw it, he said, smiling. The firstborn. You're ready now. Evelyn grabbed his shoulders. This isn't you. You're being used. We have to leave. Tobias giggled, but the sound turned into a choking, unnatural growl. He grabbed her hand and pressed it to his chest. You already gave birth, Mommy. You just don't remember. She staggered back. No. That's not possible. The walls pulsed. The floor writhed. The tree painted in blood on the basement ceiling shifted, its branches reaching, forming a spiral. At the center, a womb. Inside it, a curled figure with antlers and a hollow face. Evelyn turned and ran. She barricaded the basement door, heart thudding like a war drum. In her reflection, her eyes bled. She vomited dark fluid into the sink. It wriggled like worms, crawling back toward the drain. And behind her, in the mirror, a figure loomed. Agatha. Smiling. Her voice slithered from the glass. You never left the cradle, my sweet. You've always been part of the root. Evelyn shattered the mirror with her fist. Blood sprayed across the sink. But she didn't feel pain. Only movement beneath her skin. Something inside her was waking up. The attic called to her next. She climbed, hands shaking, breath short. Inside was a circle of candles, freshly lit. A pentagram drawn in dried marrow. And at the center, a book bound in what she now knew wasn't leather. It opened on its own. The pages turned violently before stopping on a single image. A tree of flesh. Its roots were human limbs. Its trunk a body, faceless. Armless. At its base, dozens of cradles. Each one filled with infants of bone. And shadow. Above it. The seed of the sleeper shall spread. And below it, in her own handwriting. I am the gate. Evelyn fell to her knees, weeping. And in the corner of the attic, Tobias watched, eyes glowing faintly red. Later that night, Evelyn woke to find herself outside. Barefoot. The ground beneath her pulsed with warmth. She was standing in a graveyard, but not of tombstones. Of trees. Each tree marked with a symbol from the journal. Each pulsing softly. Roots twisted around skeletal hands reaching from the earth. One tree was hollow. Inside, bones wept black sap. She heard the chant again. Blood remembers. Bone awakens. Flesh returns. Behind her, dozens of figures emerged from the trees, nude, pale, eyeless. Each wore a crescent claw locket. Each swayed with the windless night. Tobias stepped forward. You came back to us, Mommy. Evelyn tried to scream, but her mouth had been sewn shut. Just like the drawing. She woke in her bed. Mouth intact. But her arms were marked. Dozens of small, crescent-shaped scars. And a new locket rested on her chest. It wasn't silver anymore. It was bone. She opened it. Inside, a tooth. Still warm. The inscription read. The inheritance is accepted. The gate is sealed. The womb shall flower. Tobias sat at the edge of her bed. You'll remember everything soon. When the final root blooms. Then he smiled. And beneath his smile. Teeth. Too many. Like hers. Like family. The air in the house no longer smelled of dust or decay. It smelled like birth. Thick. Coppery. Sweet like rotting fruit. Evelyn awoke to the sensation of something tugging gently at her insides. Not pain. Not quite. But pressure. Movement. Like something wrapping itself around her spine from within. The bed beneath her was damp. Not with sweat. With soil. Rich, black, pulsing earth, seeping from the mattress, alive with wriggling white larvae. She screamed, bolting upright. But Tobias was already standing in the doorway. Naked. Smiling. His eyes were completely white now. Veins black. His small hands clutched the bone locket that pulsed in rhythm with Evelyn's heartbeat. "It's almost time, Mommy," he whispered. "The root is ready to feed." She couldn't take it anymore. She packed a bag. Dragged Tobias by the arm. Kicking. Laughing. Whispering ancient things in languages she didn't understand. They reached the car. She jammed the keys into the ignition. It wouldn't turn. The steering wheel pulsed beneath her fingers, soft, spongy. Fleshy. When she looked down, she saw the truth. The car's interior had changed. The seats were no longer leather. They were skin. Veined. Breathing. The dashboard oozed black ichor from its vents. She screamed and stumbled out, dragging Tobias, who looked back at the house with longing. "Don't you see, Mommy," he said with a wide, jagged grin. "You're inside it. You never left the cradle. You were born here." Back inside, the walls had changed. They pulsed, beating like a heart. The hallway had extended into impossible angles. Rooms twisted. Portraits bled. The faces in the frames now moved, some silently mouthing words, others tearing at the canvas from the inside. Every footstep she took was echoed by something underneath. Not beneath the floor. Beneath her. Within her. The whispers returned. Not external now. Internal. Crawling through her skull like worms. Feed the root. Flour the flesh. Carry the cradle. She fell to her knees in the kitchen. Her fingers bled where they touched the counter. She vomited earth. Clumps of grass pushed up through the tile. Tobias placed a hand on her shoulder. "They chose you, Mommy. The hollow tree is thirsty." That night, she awoke again at 3:03 a.m. This time in the attic. She didn't walk there. She simply was there. Naked. Covered in symbols carved into her flesh. Circles. Spirals. Eyes. Roots. The symbols bled, but not blood. Something white. Viscous. Milk-like. Feeding a ring of bowls around her, each shaped from skulls. Figures surrounded her now. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. All family. All blood. All dead. Their eyes glowed softly in the candlelight. Their mouths were stitched shut with strands of hair. Agatha stepped forward. "You carry the seed well," she croaked, holding a hand to Evelyn's stomach. "You are the fertile soil. You are the gate of rebirth." Evelyn tried to scream, but her lips had fused together. Her tongue writhed uselessly. Inside her belly, something kicked. Hard. Not like a baby. Like something clawing to get out. She awoke the next morning back in her bed. The attic symbols now branded into her flesh, scabbing over with strange, bark-like scars. Tobias was gone. She searched every room, screaming his name. Then she heard it. The basement. The cradle. It was rocking again. But now it roared with sound, wet, gurgling cries. Like a newborn. But deeper. Heavier. Wrong. She descended slowly. The candles were now bone white. The cradle was larger. Twisting branches wrapped around it like ribs. Inside, Tobias lay still. Eyes open. Smiling. His mouth filled with soil. A root ran from his stomach into the ground beneath the cradle. He whispered, "I'm feeding him now, Mommy. Just like you will." Then he blinked. Once. And screamed, long and high, as he was dragged into the earth beneath. The cradle collapsed into a pile of worms. Evelyn dug with her hands. Screaming. Bleeding. She ripped up fistfuls of soil, deeper and deeper, until her fingers struck bone. Then movement. Then warmth. She pulled until her fingernails bent backwards. And then something grabbed back. From the earth below, a hand surfaced. Too large. Gray. 6 fingers. Eyes opened in the dirt. A face with no features but a mouth, enormous, yawning, rose up from the grave. It whispered in 1,000 dead voices. "Feed me." Evelyn screamed and fell back. The face grinned. The soil split open like flesh. Inside, Tobias. Floating in the root sac of the hollow tree. Eyes closed. Covered in bark. Becoming part of it. Evelyn awoke in the bathtub, submerged in cold, muddy water. Her stomach now swelled unnaturally, her veins blackened like roots under the skin. The tub was filled with writhing worms. She tried to climb out, but her legs were numb. Paralyzed. Carved. When she looked closer, she saw the skin on her thighs had been opened in circular patterns. Inside, eyes. Dozens. Watching. Blinking. She passed out screaming. When she woke again, she was in the attic. Surrounded by the ancestors. The ritual had begun. They laid her in the cradle. Not a metaphorical one. A true cradle. Woven of bones and vines and silver hair. The floor beneath was soaked in blood. They chanted. The gate. The flower. The sleeper returns. Agatha stepped forward, holding a dagger made of teeth. She touched Evelyn's stomach. "You carry him now." The last root. The air. Evelyn tried to move, but her arms were bound with hair. Her body convulsed. The thing inside her moved. Rolled. Grew. She felt her ribs bend outward. Her mouth opened, but only insects crawled out. Agatha whispered. "Only the family survives. All else is soil." Then plunged the dagger into Evelyn's belly. Black fluid sprayed across the ceiling. But no one screamed. The family chanted louder. The tree painted on the wall began to grow. Real branches tore through the attic. One by one, corpses bloomed from it like fruit. Tobias opened his eyes from within the bark and began to sing. Evelyn, her mouth stitched, her body breaking, looked up as the ceiling split open. Above them, the sky was no longer sky. It was an eye. Watching. Blinking. Waiting. And then something began to crawl out of her. Not a child. A god. Evelyn's screams were silent. Her mouth was sewn shut with hair plucked from the dead. Her body writhed in the bone cradle, soaked in blood both her own and not. Around her, the attic pulsed like a living organ. Veins of root and black tendrils slithered along the walls, pulsing to a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Above her, the ancestors chanted. Agatha stood at the foot of the cradle, arms outstretched, dagger in one hand, her other resting on Evelyn's swollen, splitting belly. The thing inside Evelyn pressed against her skin with unnatural force. A clawed handprint pushed outward, distorting her stomach. It was not a child. It was something older. The sleeper. The hollow tree's last heir. And Evelyn was the gate through which it would emerge. Outside, the red moon bled across the sky. The stars had twisted into unnatural constellations, circles, spirals, eyes. The air smelled like soil and milk and rot. From the ground around Blackthorn Hill, trees began to grow. Rapidly. Violently. They clawed their way out of the earth, sprouting limbs, faces, mouths. The entire hill became a garden of the dead. The town of Ashridge began to burn without fire, buildings rotted and crumbled, birds dropped from the sky, and those who slept never woke again. The Granger bloodline had awakened the root, and now it fed. Evelyn's mind shattered like glass underwater. She saw memories that were not her own, women tied to trees, birthing things that shrieked like the wind. Faces pulled apart and sewn back into bark. A lineage of women carved open on ritual slabs, wombs used as vessels. They all had her face. She was not the first. She would not be the last. The cradle rocked violently as her ribs cracked. She felt herself opening. Expanding. Something pushed against her pelvis, a face. Not human. Smooth, bone-white. No eyes. Just a slit of a mouth, breathing, pulsing. The ancestors moaned in unison. Agatha leaned down and whispered. "He's here." Then she drove the dagger into Evelyn's sternum. But Evelyn didn't die. The blade only unlocked something. Her blood spilled, but instead of falling, it rose, curling in the air like smoke. The roots drank it. The tree in the attic grew, splitting through the roof. Branches reached toward the bleeding moon, pulling its light into the room. And then. It was born. The sleeper. It slid from her like molasses and shadow, a grotesque, twitching mass of limbs, bark, bone, and tendons. Its body screamed, not with sound, but with thought. The moment it entered the air, the room dropped in temperature. Frost formed on skin. Candles died. Tobias appeared beside the cradle, eyes glowing. He smiled at the thing. "My brother," he said. The sleeper rose. Tall. Towering. Antlers twisted from its skull like branches clawing the heavens. Its body was made of them, all the Granger women. Faces woven into its ribs. Their eyes blinked. Mouths silently screamed. It moved with jerks and snaps. Like something pretending to be human. It turned toward Evelyn, still bound, blood-soaked, staring up with what little sanity remained. It reached for her. And in her mind, it spoke. "You were the gate. The flower. The blood tree opens." Then it pressed its long, clawed finger to her chest. And entered her again. But this time, it didn't crawl inside her womb. It moved up, into her mind. Her skin bubbled. Her hair turned white. Her eyes split horizontally, revealing black orbs beneath. Her screams became gurgles. Her spine arched. She rose from the cradle, floating in the air. The tree responded, its branches flailed. The attic ceiling tore open completely. The sky gaped like a hungry mouth. Tobias knelt. The ancestors chanted louder, crying in rapture. And Evelyn, no longer Evelyn, opened her mouth. And spoke in the voice of the sleeper. "I am born again through root and rot. The line is sealed. The gate is devoured. Let the world forget the lie of light." Then she collapsed. And the sleeper stood alone. What emerged next defied all form. The sleeper divided. It cracked into three. One form remained humanoid, antlered, smooth-faced. The second was purely root, writhing, pulsing, spiraling into the foundations of the house. The third was mist, black and alive, spreading into the wind, seeping into the land. They each whispered. Together, they spoke the curse. And Ashridge was erased. Days passed. Weeks maybe. But time was broken now. Those who came near the hill either vanished or were consumed by vines. The house, once broken and decaying, was reborn. Rebuilt with sinew and bark. Its walls bled honey-thick sap. The windows blinked. The floors breathed. A heartbeat echoed constantly, deep and slow. And inside it, Evelyn remained. Not dead. Not alive. Suspended en route. Eyes open. Watching. Smiling. Waiting. One night, a young couple driving through the old road near Ashridge saw a figure on the hill. A child. Alone. They stopped. The woman stepped out, worried. "Are you lost, sweetie?" The boy looked up. It was Tobias. He smiled. His mouth now filled with sharp teeth and soil. "My mommy wants to meet you." The couple never made it back to the road. Deep in the basement of the new hollow home, the cradle rocks again. And inside it, a new seed grows. The line is eternal. The gate is never closed. The sleeper has fed. But it still hungers. Always. The forests around Blackthorn Hill had changed. They no longer whispered with wind or rustled with deer. Instead, they breathed, slow, wet breaths that shook the leaves and twisted the branches into unnatural arches. Trees leaned toward the house at the center of it all, as if pulled by gravity or worship. Beneath their roots lay the bones of Ashridge, a town devoured without fire, swallowed by memory and rot. The world forgot it. But the blood remembered. And now, it called to others. Miles away, in a town that hadn't yet withered, a girl named Mira Keen awoke screaming. Her dreams had been filled with circles. Spirals. A tree with weeping faces. And a man with antlers, tall, silent, faceless, standing in her childhood bedroom, reaching out with arms of shadow. Every night the same. And every night, she woke with blood on her fingertips and dirt beneath her nails. Doctors said trauma. Medication. Sleep paralysis. But something else was happening. Something inside her was remembering. Mira had never known her birth mother. Adopted at age 3. Raised by quiet, God-fearing people who never answered questions about where she came from. But a letter came that morning. No stamp. No return address. Just her name, in crimson ink, and one sentence inside. "It's time to return to your roots." Inside the envelope, a locket. Crescent-shaped. Silver. The moment she touched it, the whispers began. The journey to Ashridge took 3 days. Each town she passed seemed emptier. More distant. The sky grew darker, though no storm came. Birds avoided the skies. And at night, the man with antlers came closer. She no longer dreamt. She watched. And in the dream world, she followed him. He took her by the hand and led her into a forest made of bone. Beneath her feet, faces shifted in the soil, eyes opening in the dirt. Trees bent to whisper secrets. When she asked who he was, he pressed a clawed finger to her chest. And her heart stopped. Only for a moment. Long enough to let something else in. She found the house on the 4th night. Blackthorn Hill stood in complete silence. The world beyond it did not exist. No roads. No sky. No sound. Just the house. It had changed. Not rebuilt. Not renovated. Evolved. Its walls twisted like bark. Its windows pulsed like open eyes. Its door opened before she touched it. And in the center of the hall, a boy stood waiting. Tobias. Smiling. "You came back," he said, tilting his head. "The blood always calls its seed home." Mira trembled. "I don't know you. But I know you," he said. "You're our sister." Inside, the air vibrated with memory. Mira saw images carved into the walls, women screaming in cradles, their wombs torn open to feed the tree. Generations bound by blood and bark, birthing monsters with no names. And always, standing in the background, watching. The Black Antlered God. Tobias led her to the basement. She resisted. "It's where you were born," he said. "The soil remembers your scream." The steps groaned beneath her. Each one felt like walking into a mouth. Below, the cradle rocked. But it was no longer just wood and root. It had grown arms. Long withered. Human. And inside it, Evelyn. Still. Rooted. Face covered in bark. Her mouth moved but made no sound. Tobias whispered, "She's dreaming the world into what it was always meant to be." Then Mira heard the voice. Not spoken. Not heard. But felt. It spoke in the marrow of her bones. In the coil of her guts. In the spark behind her eyes. "You are mine, daughter of the forgotten branch. You carry the hollow seed. You are the final womb." She fell to her knees. The floor pulsed. Roots surged from beneath, wrapping around her legs, arms, throat. They didn't strangle. They merged. And she saw Agatha. Miriam. Evelyn. Dozens. Hundreds. All part of the tree now. All smiling. The antlered figure stepped from the shadows. 7 feet tall. Bones exposed like armor. A crown of twisting, bleeding horns. Its face was smooth, but ever shifting, sometimes Evelyn, sometimes Mira, sometimes no one at all. Its voice split reality. "This is not possession. This is inheritance." Mira screamed. But no sound came. Her mouth opened. And bark grew from her lips. The ritual began. She was suspended above the cradle by chains made of hair. The room filled with family. Dead. Living. Rooted. They chanted in unison, bleeding from the eyes, the nose, the fingertips. The final flower blooms. The Black Antlered God is born anew. Tobias took the bone dagger and approached. He whispered, "It's not pain. It's return." Then he cut her open. Not flesh. But bark. Inside her belly, roots twisted. Something moved. And laughed. Outside, the sky turned to rot. The stars bled. Time cracked. Those who remembered Mira forgot her name. Records disappeared. Photos burned to ash. Because she was no longer human. She had become what she was always meant to be. The bride of the sleeper. The final gate. The mother of the hollow god. Inside her womb, the Black Antlered God took form. Its first scream shattered every mirror in the house. Its second scream broke the sun. The sun died. Not suddenly. Not explosively. It withered, faded into a black ember, suffocated by the cry of the newborn god. And in its place, the eye opened in the sky. A pulsing, lidless wound in the cosmos that bled dark light onto the world below. Time fractured. Seasons collapsed into one eternal dusk. Shadows walked without hosts. And at the center of the ruin, Blackthorn Hill breathed. It was no longer a house. It was alive. Its walls had split open like flesh, revealing roots pulsing with black ichor. The windows blinked with wet lashes. The chimney curled upward like a horn. And where the front door once stood, a gaping mouth yawned. The cradle had bloomed. Mira no longer walked. She floated, her limbs wrapped in thorns, her body suspended from the ceiling of the attic temple, the highest branch of the flesh tree that had grown through the house and ruptured the sky. She was a blossom now. Swollen. Blooming with divine rot. The sleeper gestated within her. A god not of light, but of silence, decay, remembrance. And Mira had remembered everything. She was not adopted. She was hidden. Hidden by a desperate priest who tried to cut the seed from her before it took root. But it had already buried itself in her blood. In her dreams. Her womb was never hers. It belonged to the root-born. Beneath her, the family circled the spiral staircase that wrapped around the tree's trunk. Naked, faceless, genderless, all bound in hair and scar tissue. They moaned in a tongue older than stars, a language not meant for the air. Their feet bled. Their hands clutched dried umbilical cords like rosaries. Tobias led them. He had changed again. Taller now. Eyes removed and sewn shut. His spine split to form two jagged wings of bone. He spoke without lips. She opens. The bloom splits. The seed cries. The god awakens. And as he chanted, Mira's body arched in the thorns. Her stomach split open, like a fruit tearing along its seams. No blood came out. Only roots. They spilled from her body like tentacles, wrapping around the room, penetrating the walls, splitting through time and memory. Each root carried a face. A memory. A scream. Each pulsed with life. Each fed the tree. And the tree began to blossom. Across the ceiling, dozens of human-shaped flowers bloomed, petals made of flesh, teeth at their cores, humming like bees. Below, the family wept in ecstasy. And Mira. Mira laughed. A deep, broken, beautiful laugh that echoed across the dying sky. She was no longer human. She was the Blue Mother. Across the world, those of the bloodline felt it. Women descended from the Granger line, those who had escaped, those who had forgotten, those who never knew, they all awoke at once. Bleeding. Dreaming. Changing. In New Orleans, a woman gave birth to a black tree from her womb. In Romania, a midwife clawed her eyes out as the sound of unseen children whispered from the forest. In Tokyo, a girl bit through her own tongue and began speaking in roots. The hereditary curse had blossomed. And it was beautiful. Inside the attic temple, the sleeper's head crowned. It was not a baby. It was not even alive in the traditional sense. It was ancient. A god reduced to seed. Now regrown in Mira's holy flesh. Its face was a mask of bone and bark. Its eyes, if they were eyes, were black spirals filled with screaming mouths. Its breath made the roots groan in pleasure. Tobias knelt beneath it. The hollow god has come, he whispered. Born from tree and scream. Mira screamed again as her pelvis cracked open like wood splitting in winter. But her scream birthed light. Not white. Not yellow. But black light, a light that erased color and memory and truth. It poured from the sleeper's body, spreading into the air. The world forgot itself. The tree burst from the roof entirely. Now fully visible, it towered into the bleeding sky, splitting clouds with its spiral limbs. From its bark, new fruit hung. Each a womb, each a face. They wept. They sang. And they called to others. Pilgrims. Lost souls. Blood-bound wanderers. They walked from cities and villages and oceans, eyes wide, mouths sewn shut by their own hands. They crawled into the roots and were consumed lovingly. Beneath the tree, a new altar formed. Constructed from the skeletons of every woman in the Granger line. Each skull engraved with spirals. Each pelvis arranged like petals. And at the center, Evelyn, reborn. She sat in a throne of ribs, her face covered in bark, her body a vessel of pure root. She was the first gate. Mira was the final. Together, they began to chant. Their voices caused miscarriages across continents. The tree pulsed. The sleeper opened its eyes fully. And with it, the Black Antlered God rose. He stepped into existence not with footsteps, but with unmaking. Reality bent around him. His antlers scraped against stars, tearing open the sky. From his back grew wings of screams. Where he walked, the ground peeled itself open in offering. Where he looked, things were remembered wrong. He approached the altar. Knelt before Evelyn. Touched Mira's broken, blooming body. And whispered. I take root. I consume. I begin. Then he climbed into the tree. Merged with it. And the world bloomed. All across the planet, forests turned to flesh. Cities rotted into spiral gardens. Mothers screamed into the soil as their children returned to seed. The oceans boiled away, revealing faces in the depths. And the sky bled its final drop of color. Now, there was only bark. Only bone. Only the tree. In the remains of Blackthorn Hill, the flesh tree stands still. But it is not silent. Its branches whisper in unborn voices. Its roots feed on forgotten things, memories, names, places. And at its center, Mira sways. Empty. Holy. The Blue Mother. Her body now home to 1,000 gestating gods. All with the same face. All with her blood. The world is no longer a place. It is a womb. It throbs beneath an eyeless sky, pulsing to the rhythm of the flesh tree's heartbeat. There is no sun, only the black eye, ever watching, ever bleeding a dark light that sterilizes all hope. Time is irrelevant now. Language has collapsed into gurgles and root speech. Civilization is mulch. And above it all, towering, beautiful in its rot, stands the flesh tree. The branches stretch through clouds that no longer drift. They twist in spirals that never end. From each limb dangle swollen sacks of womb flesh, pale, veined, and pulsing, each one carrying a god. A child. A curse. And from the base of the tree, roots spread like veins across the surface of the dying earth, penetrating cities, oceans, graveyards, memories. Wherever the bloodline once touched, the root now grows. Mira no longer speaks. She sings. Not with her mouth. That's long gone. Bark and bone sealed her lips. Her entire body sings. Her skin vibrates with hymns. Her eyes glow like twin seeds, spiraling faster with every birth. Her womb has split open into a permanent blossom, its petals made of ribs and teeth. And from it, the hollow children emerge. One by one. Infants shaped like nightmares, bone-thin, spiral-eyed, antlered and faceless. They crawl from her in silence, cling to the flesh tree, and climb toward the sky to nest in the fruit. Each one whispers her name as they go. Not Mira. But Mother Hollow. The Blue Mother. Queen of the root-born. Bride of the sleeper. Tobias has become something else entirely. No longer child. No longer prophet. He is the spiral shepherd now. He walks the broken plains of what was once earth, naked but robed in writhing vines and teeth. Wherever he walks, the land splits open, and a new root bursts forth, creating a new altar, a new worshipper. He touches the foreheads of the few surviving humans, those who still try to hide, to resist, to believe in old gods. When he touches them, they remember. Their dreams return. The blood wakes up. The curse completes. And then they willingly throw themselves into the earth. To be consumed. To feed the tree. One such man, the last, perhaps, makes it to the edge of Blackthorn Hill. He is broken. Eyes wild. Lips bitten down to blood. He carries an old cross and a journal, written by someone long dead, its pages filled with warnings and spiral sketches. He stands at the edge of the forest, staring up at the flesh tree, sobbing. He speaks to no one. I don't remember my name. I only remember the dreams. The faces in the soil. My mother singing to me in root tongue. The cradle that rocked when no one was near. I came to stop it. But I am part of it. He kneels. He opens his mouth. And a small black tree grows from his throat. He chokes once. Then smiles. And falls forward. The final resistance collapses. No more screams. Only songs. The flesh tree sings into space now, its roots cracking the sky, breaking into other realms, spreading through dimensions, touching stars and swallowing them. It is not content. It is hungry. The hollow god wants more. Other worlds. Other wombs. Other dreams to devour. And then the final child is born. Mira arches on her altar of ribs, her back snapping backward in rapture as the air thickens with the smell of afterbirth and burned prayer. This child is not like the others. It is larger. Older. Born smiling. It speaks the moment it exits her flesh. I am the hollowing. The end that breathes. The God with no need for time. Its voice is the wind. The dirt. The weeping of the buried. It climbs to the very top of the flesh tree. There, it tears open the black eye in the sky. And crawls through. On the other side is nothing. But not for long. The hollowing begins. Through the tear in the sky, the curse spills outward, spiral tendrils reaching into new realities, new dimensions, new possibilities. Each one destined to remember. To forget. To be reborn. The tree is now infinite. And the bloodline never ends. Inside Mira, the roots finally still. Her body breaks apart like petals in the wind, dissolving into spores. She is no longer needed. She was the gate. Now she is part of the root. Evelyn smiles from her throne of bones. Tobias walks into the earth. And the flesh tree sways. In the farthest dimension, where light was never meant to go, something hears the song. And begins to dream. The world is hollow. And the root has bloomed. The curse was never meant to be broken. It was meant to grow. The story of Hereditary was never about one woman, one child, or even one bloodline. It was about the hunger that passes through generations, invisible yet insidious, whispering beneath skin and soul. Evelyn thought she was escaping her family's darkness. Mira thought she was distant from it. But blood remembers. And the root waits. It sleeps in lullabies. In heirlooms. In creaking cradles. In spiral-shaped birthmarks and dreams we forget by morning. The horror was never outside. It was always inherited. The flesh tree now blooms eternal, its roots winding through time, dimensions, and thought. It is not dead. It is not alive. It is memory made flesh. And its song continues. You may not hear it yet, but it's there. In that recurring nightmare. In the family photo with one figure no one remembers. In the way your bones ache in silence. In the locket hidden in the attic. It's waiting. Because no matter how far you run, you cannot escape what's inside you. And if you carry the blood, you carry the root. The end.